Keep the cash flowing. Cenk and Anna always sound like they're fresh off of a heated Twitter debate. Yeah. There was this video that I saw about like...
I think Cedar's a grifter.
The video from Humanist Report talking about some of this stuff.
He may have issues with me personally. That's fine. I don't care at all.
I mean, have you pulled a Reuben, as some people suggest?
Like, she's gone on, Anna Experience now gone on like 3 different shows to talk about how she's moving away from the left. And how the left is just not as nice to her anymore. And the right, some people in the right are just really nice. So, yeah, I'm like not... That's just how the cookie crumbles, right?
So I feel like it's come to a point where we now have a lot more clarity about the TYT situation, specifically their right-wing pivot. And I now know where this disconnect is specifically coming from between them and us. And I debated about whether or not to even talk about this again, because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to rehash drama. But in my mind, this isn't just about drama any longer. To TYT, they view this as a competition to maintain hegemony in this space because Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian presumably feel as if they've been usurped in some ways by the likes of Hassan Piker, as well as Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland. And they kind of have. I mean, Majority Report is just a better, more principled version of TYT, and more people are coming to that same realization, and Cenk is taking notice. He's jealous, I think, that Majority Report is eating his lunch because he's always viewed TYT as the champion of the progressive left on YouTube, and he still wants ownership over this space, but he's starting to lose it, and he's mad about that. And he's especially mad that he's losing dominance to people in particular that he probably views as inferior. Now, I don't know what's in his mind, but this is the way it comes across to me. I mean, Majority Report, they used to be part of TYT's network. I was also part of TYT network. So in some ways, I think that Cenk feels like we owe him our success, even though we don't. We built platforms and then joined TYT network because we were popular. But regardless, you know, he thinks that we shouldn't challenge his political orthodoxy because we should be paying him fealty and thanking him because he feels responsible for our success. Or at a minimum, you know, he feels like we should be thankful that he created a model that we replicate today. He walked so we can run, in other words, but we're not giving him what he believes is owed to him. Now, to be clear, I don't view other people in this space as competition like Cenk views us as competition. I think that a win for David Dole is a win for me. When Lance of the Serfs gets 10,000 new subscribers, that's a win for me too, because we're not competitors in my mind. We're colleagues who are working towards the same goal, and a win for one of us is a win for all of us. Cenk, however, I don't think he views this space in that way. Maybe he did, but he certainly doesn't now. To him, this is a competition, and he wants TYT to come out on top. He wants to carry the mantle of the online left forever, and he wants to set the agenda and establish the parameters that the rest of us have to abide by. But I mean, I reject that mentality. Others in this space do too. And to him, he views this as a sort of rebellion against him. And in response, he's melted down repeatedly and tried to reassert himself as the true leader of this space while insisting that we should all bow down to him because his ego is bruised and he can't tolerate people calling him out for his dogshit takes. So I guess what I'm ultimately getting to is what's happening here is 3 things. We're seeing hubris, a politics of self-grievance, and mixed messaging from the network. And that's what's creating this disconnect between them and us. And over the course of this video, I'm going to demonstrate that case to you. So first and foremost, let's talk about the mixed messages, because that is the lowest common denominator that's driving all of this drama, if you want to call it that, because TYT, they brand themselves as home of progressives, yet repeatedly they undermine that branding with centrist and even right-wing counter messaging. And when people call it out and they say, hey, that's not very progressive, he'll respond by dismissing their criticism and reasserting himself as the true arbiter of truth on the left, but he never actually addresses the substance of our claims, and he refuses to reconcile the mixed messaging that we're all seeing. For example, when Anna Kasparian went on Jillian Michaels' show, the thumbnail plays up her right-wing pivot and asks if she's leaving the left. And it even says, you know, why I left the left in a quote. Now, when she went on Piers Morgan, look at the way that he introduced her as well.
So has Anna Kasparian left the left? Let's find out. She joins me now. Anna, welcome to your uncensored debut.
Yeah, but to be fair, Anna can't control the thumbnails and the framing on other people's channels. But I mean, these shows are playing up that narrative for a reason. And while she's lead into it more than Cenk, he's continuing to deny it and feigns outrage whenever he's called out for it. But Cenk has at times leaned into it and he's played footsie with the right, but he still wants to maintain dominance over the leftist space when he's very clearly moving away from that. For example, he tweeted, "I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election, even though I was so against the guy that won. I know now, MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated." Sure, because the electoral victory of a billionaire fascist who's stacking his cabinet full of neocons and other billionaires is certainly evidence that the establishment has been defeated. Cool. But I mean, if we call that out and say, hey, that's pretty fucking stupid, we're just drama farming, or we're too dumb to understand the 40 chess moves that he's making to trick the right into giving us the policies that we want. But I'm sorry, not a lot of lefties are going to endorse that weird, narcissistic, and self-serving strategy that he's pursuing currently. And if you're going to purport to represent the true left, as you say you do, people are going to object to these kinds of things if they feel like it reflects poorly on them. I'm not the one who's claiming that I represent the entire left. You are. So if you're going to claim to have a monopoly on truth and strategic wisdom in this space, people are going to push back on you when they say things that they feel is not representative of the left, when they feel like you're a bad example of what a leftist is or should be. I mean, even if, though, we were perfectly ideologically aligned, I'll admit, I still wouldn't want Cenk to represent the left because, quite frankly, he comes off as unhinged and unserious. I mean, he had a vanity presidential run to hawk his fucking book. That's embarrassing. And I think that other people better represent our collective values. But with that being said, nobody is trying to claim ownership of this space like Cenk does. Sam Seder, I view as the true leader of the online left, but he's not saying he's the one true leftist. He allows disagreements and pushback. But I mean, if Sam Seder were to push back and criticize Cenk, Cenk would take that as evidence, not that, you know, he's putting forward this good faith criticism, but instead.
And I mean, like, look at my fucking timeline, dude, where Mike from the Humanist report quote tweets this post about reminder that Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Health, who was shot and killed, was a human being with a family. Fuck his family too. And then fucking Anna Kasparian. I mean, this is pretty much the same reaction leftists like him have when a working class woman is stabbed to death at a bus stop by a repeat offender that they want out roaming the streets.
As evidence that he's trying to replace Cenk as the new de facto leader of this space when it's really not that deep. If Sam Seder criticizes Cenk, if I criticize Cenk, I'm just disagreeing. And I'm trying to get you to see my point of view because I think that you have a big platform and you can use it more effectively. But I mean, Cenk doesn't see it that way, and it's a problem. And throughout Cenk's stream with Hassan, which was incredibly long, you know, he tried to claim ownership again and again of this leftist space, but he doesn't realize that TYT has lost the credibility that they once had by repeatedly shifting to the right and shitting on the left and playing footsie with fascists. Case in point.
I watched your conversation with Matt Walsh today. I thought it was a good conversation. I haven't seen that film at all, but I mean, he touches on something that's very real.
I watched your conversations with Ben Shapiro. And you inspired me to have that conversation with Matt Walsh.
Yeah.
How dare you accuse us of shifting to the right? I mean, I'm only complimenting a self-proclaimed theocratic fascist for touching on a very real issue ignored by the left, but I'm not going right-wing, ooh. It's just so fucking disingenuous. And they think that we're stupid and naive and can't see what's happening. that we can't see what's already happened before multiple times on this same network. And just for shits and giggles, look at how she responded when Piers Morgan asked her if she's now doing what she criticized Dave Rubin of doing. And her answer, I think, was very illuminating.
This is what you said when Dave Rubin pivoted. Let's have a look.
There has been this prevalence of prominent figures who identify as the left, right, or on the left, who then later start to, you know, cozy up to right-wing figures, and then it turns out that they completely move.
The same way, this is the same as the way political classes, like, I can reach across the aisle, can you? Why? Yeah, this is the same as like, hey, everybody, here, look, Liz Cheney is endorsing me. Dick Cheney is endorsing me. It's like, why are you doing that?
To the right wing because they're essentially paid to do it. They're used as tools by the right wing to essentially spew right wing talking points while purporting to still be on the left. In fact, Dave Rubin's a great example of that. Dave Rubin used to work with us. He identified as someone on the left.
So, I mean, have you pulled a Rubin, as some people suggest?
I mean, I'm still pretty left-wing, and I'm still working at the exact same place. Look, I don't know. Maybe I was wrong about Dave Rubin, but I just felt that he, first of all, after he left TYT, he did lie about us, and that bothered me because we were still friends, and I didn't understand what was going on.
And that, my friends, is where we get the politics of self-grievance. It's on full display because she's inadvertently admitting that she never really took issue with Dave Rubin's right-wing grift because what he was espousing was dangerous. The real problem to her was that she felt like her friend had betrayed her. And the more that she talks over a length of time, like going on different shows, the more it becomes abundantly clear that her pivot in part is fueled by personal grievance. There's a viral clip making the rounds on Twitter of her talking about how her entire opinion of Trump supporters changed because of this one Trump supporting neighbor that she talked to, Jeff. He was nice to her. And that's so weird. I find this worldview very bizarre because, I mean, I have family members who voted for Donald Trump. I've never been in a leftist or liberal echo chamber or bubble. You know, my MAGA family members, they're ostensibly nice if you talk to them, but just don't ask them about their views on immigrants or trans people because then they're not going to sound so nice. You know,
this
maybe
is my favorite thing also, the criticism that's levied against people on the left that we're all like in echo chambers. It's just so fucking horseshit. It's so obviously horseshit because almost every single leftist that I know of comes from a conservative household. I mean, myself included.
Anna can put aside those issues because she's not an immigrant or she's not trans. I mean, I know that her family is immigrants, but she herself is not at risk of deportation. So maybe she can put that aside. But for a lot of us, that disagreement is fundamental to who we are as human beings. So we can't put it aside. But in her mind, the left right now is being mean to her, while a right-winger and many right-wingers are being nice to her. Therefore, her worldview must have been flawed. And I'm obviously making an assumption that this is how she's operating, at least on a subconscious level, when I don't know for sure. But I mean, this politics of personal grievance is bad if it is what she's doing, because it is inevitably how you become a reactionary. Because rather than looking at the macro, you base your entire worldview on personal anecdotes, which is going to fail you. And this isn't unique to TYT or Anna Kasparian. They're not the first to do this. A lot of people have this view. It's why I always have been overly nice and apologetic to friends and family, to the point where I kind of became a doormat, because basically every single person in my real life who I know, I am the only gay person that they've ever known. So their interaction with me could shape their perception of all gay people. And that horrifies me, because I don't want to represent an entire group of people. I'm just one member of a very large community that is not a monolith. And I don't want someone's entire worldview to be colored by this one interaction that they have with me, where maybe I'm an asshole or I lose my temper, because I'm not perfect. And that responsibility that I felt I had, it ate away at me for most of my life, until I realized I can't live that way. You know, I can't base my own self-worth on other people's personal grievances, right? I'm one person, and if somebody starts to hate gay people because I was mean to them, or I forgot to say bless you after they sneezed or some shit, that's their problem. That's not my problem. But Cenk and Anna have presumably shifted away their focus to their own personal grievances and not on the actual policy and the data themselves. The left thinks that they're, too right-wing on crime. So what do? They become mad and they lean into that to spite the left and prove them wrong because they can never admit that they're wrong. If the left says that they're not supportive enough of trans people, what do? Well, they get mad and they lean into that too until they're validated and we're invalidated. It's how they've been operating for the past year or so. It's an immature way to view the world, but I mean, it's presumably what's driving them. And I don't know, again, for sure what's in their hearts and in their minds, but they kind of admit a lot that personal grievances is what's driving their behavior. The right has been nice to them lately and the left has been mean to them. So they go on right-wing shows and avoid the leftist mafia and Sam Cedar like the plague. That's what it looks like to me. So, I mean, it could be wrong, but that's what a lot of us are kind of seeing. And on the topic of personal grievances, when Anna made her birthing person tweet, she privately told me that she felt like she was being publicly bashed by people like myself and presumably others in this space who she considered friends. In other words, it wasn't what we said, it was where we said it. Even though we were respectful, the fact that we disagreed publicly with her, it felt like a betrayal. And in response, she felt compelled to double down, so that way her friends who she felt like betrayed.
Damn, didn't realize the Shire was so conservative. Color me surprised DNM balls, DNM hobbits are hogs. Please tell Mayor Ked he cannot pay his tab in dead birds, we only accept mice.
Her wouldn't win, so she would be proven right. Now, she was asked about that birthing person tweet on Piers Morgan, and she did downplay the hatred she received. That's her word. It's an interesting choice of words to use when we were all very respectful if you go back and watch the videos that we did about this. But regardless, she goes on to comment about trans rights and ultimately sends another mixed message.
You also got blowback when you posted, "I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus or a person who menstruates." How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. And I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I did not expect that tweet to go as viral as it did. I didn't expect the kind of hatred I got in response to it. But look, that's okay. It's fine, right? I'm a public figure, and whether I like it or not, I signed up for any type of, harassment, abuse, whatever that you get online as a result of stating your opinions. Look, the main point I want to make about the transgender community is that these are human beings, okay? They deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And when it comes to any issue that has a real impact on their lives, housing, employment, all of that, there should be protection for this community, and we should respect the fact that they're human beings.
Now, if she just stopped talking right there, I think that maybe she actually learned from that whole birthing person kerfuffle. But she didn't stop. She kept talking and proved that we were all right to call her out because she was indeed going down a turf path, as many of us suspected. And we tried to intervene to stop that, but we've arrived at this point now.
At the same time, there are some issues that arise where the rights of one group, in this case, the transgender community, kind of conflicts with the rights of another group, the rights of women. And what I think is important is that we actually have a real dialogue, a civil dialogue, about how we move forward in a way where both parties feel that they're being treated fairly and with dignity.
So she's just A.K. Rowling at this point. We have officially arrived in turf territory where she is portraying trans rights as antithetical to women's rights in some areas. She's viewing this as a zero-sum game.
And it's just... The Anna stuff makes me so frustrated that when I try to start speaking, I get overwhelmed with frustration and then lose the ability to speak. And it's happened like 3 times so far in just this video alone, where I start and I'm like, okay, all right, just chillax. Just chillax. What was that sneeze? Sorry, is that your sneeze? Yeah, I sneezed. It's a little dusty in here. I think I need to vacuum. It's just so dumb. It was so dumb. If you honestly feel that going to a doctor's office or anyone at all saying like birthing person, maybe this is the gamer in me or something. I don't know. Like, dude, like go play some fucking video games, okay? Grow the fuck up. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You're getting offended because someone called you birthing person? One, I don't even believe that this is happening. And I kind of don't believe that you actually are even getting offended by this, okay? It's so stupid. It's such a non-issue. No doctor has ever said birth. I hang out with some of the most leftists, and it has never happened ever. Ever, okay? Second, if you're getting offended by that, I don't know how to explain that that is a you problem. Like, it is not an offensive term. That would be getting offended because somebody said that you like mangoes and you like mangoes. Oh! How dare you say, I like fruit, thank you very much, not mangoes. All right? It's so stupid. It's just such a dumb thing to get hung up about. I also refuse to believe that if you called someone a birthing person, that you wouldn't be able to just tell them, you just call me a woman, actually. Actually, you can just call me a woman. That's fine. I disagree on the notion that it's degrading inherently. I think, if anything, referring to women in contexts where you would be talking about their capacity to give birth and referring to them not as birthing person can be degrading. It's just so dumb. It's just so stupid. Like, the entirety of it, like, all of it is just dumb. It's a technical term meant to be very specific. Yeah. It wasn't from medical text or something. Yeah. But she argued that someone in her everyday life said it to her, which this is almost as ridiculous as when, like, which Cuomo brother was it? Chris Cuomo was the other one. He got really mad that someone called him Frito. And he's like, anti-Italian racism is well and alive. Look, it's like... There's just no way. There's no way. Or, like, someone genuinely being offended by the term cracker. Like, and these are words that you would use in a derogatory fashion. The word that she's using is a descriptive term. It's not meant to have any positive or negative weight. It's supposed to be a neutral term. But it's on that level of fucking ridiculous. He said Frito was like the N-word for Italians. So stupid. So dumb. So dumb. It's so stupid. It's so stupid that my brain struggles to, like, even conceptualize actually being offended by something so dumb.
If trans women have rights and are welcomed into women's spaces as they should be, to her, that's a net loss for cis women. And she's not specific here, but if you watch her video that she did about Sarah McBride and Nancy Mace, she talks about how dehumanizing it was for Nancy Mace to try to police the bathroom usage of the one trans lawmaker. But in one part of the video towards the end, she drops a little turf comment about how, it does get a little bit more tricky when we're talking about locker rooms.
Look, I want to be specific in noting that I do not have a problem at all with transgender people using the restrooms, the bathrooms that they identify with. The other single-sex facilities like locker rooms, I think, does get a little tricky.
She just drops that in there as she's trying to be an ally to trans people. She had to bring that up as if trans people are the predators who pose a threat to women when they are disproportionately vulnerable to sexual abuse themselves. But I mean, this, right?
And it's also, like, very obvious that she doesn't speak to anyone ever that's actually trans. Like, you can only have that opinion if you've never spoken to someone who's trans. Because the vast majority of trans people that I've spoken to have told me, and maybe my sample size is too small, and maybe I'm wrong, and this is not representative of the larger trans population, in which case I apologize that I'm wrong. But most of the trans people I've spoken to, I think basically all of them have said that they prefer changing in the bathrooms in the locker rooms. That if there are other people there, they don't even feel comfortable changing in the locker room. They want to go in the bathroom that's in the locker room to change. Like this idea that it's a little tricky when you want to put trans people in the locker room. It's so stupid, dude. It's just fucking dumb. It's just dumb. With the exception of Ronda Rousey, I don't know if I've ever heard of a female athlete actually having an issue with trans athletes. It's because there's no issue. There's no issue. I'm a cis white guy, and I just got an ad on Facebook for a t-shirt that says, Fallout New Vegas, trans my gender. Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah, it's so stupid. It's just so dumb. Tsunami gonna hit California in 20 minutes. You know, I did see
earthquake for many community members up there. We saw the aftershocks still impacting them. And now the big concern has to do with the tsunami warning that
I did see a tsunami warning. This is, I think, for NoCal. There was a 7 magnitude earthquake in NoCal. I don't know if SoCal is going to be impacted by the tsunami.
Still in effect right now along our coastline, impacting
And if it
all
is,
the Bay Area here in San Francisco, Oakland, along those bay shorelines, all the way from Bodega Bay down into Half Moon Bay too.
Yeah, it's important to note, Jess, on that map that you see there in that square on your screen, that includes the San Francisco Bay, which includes several communities. All right, let's start with San Francisco. We spoke to
what the hell is this camera?
Francisco fire personnel, fire captain, who said if you live along those areas along the coastline.
LA County, I didn't feel anything or get a notification. Yes, same.
I'm talking about, you know, Ocean Beach.
It's NorCal, not NoCal. Listen, I'm from New York, okay? It's fucking same shit, all right?
Outer Richmond, down by the marina, over by Soma. If you can see a bridge from where you are, chances are you need to get to higher ground. Then you go across the bridge. You're talking about Sausalito, Tiburon, the people who live in the houseboats there. And then you go all the way to Berkeley. Folks in Berkeley are being told if you live along the waterfront to move to higher ground. I believe that was 7th Street. Folks are being told to go beyond 7th Street, move away from the water. When in doubt, move away from the water if you're along those coastal communities. We're also being told schools in Pacifica and the communities along there.
See, this is the problem with people from NorCal. You're too busy worried about people saying NoCal instead of the tsunami that's about to fucking apparently hit.
Along the coastline.
This is why nobody likes anyone from NorCal. Source, I just made it up, I
Bottom
think.
line is, if you live within a mile of the coastline from the beach, if you can walk to the beach, chances are it's time to move to higher ground. And we've seen on on the freeways, and folks, a lot of people are just trying
I'm
to
not kidding when I said I work next to the beach.
get away and get out of whatever area they're in.
And you're seeing a boat out there on the water, and we are seeing all up and down the coastline boats being brought in. Of course, we know there are many boats for many reasons out on our waters here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They have all been told to get in and to just stay safe. Now, let's just really talk about some news you can use right here. This punctuates the importance of 2 words put together that we hear all the time here in the Bay Area, and that's go bags. Make sure that you grab your go bag. If you have 2 or 3 that keep you prepared for this, get it and get to higher ground. The most important thing that you can use right now is information. So that speaks to needing to have a battery in your bag that can keep your cell phone powered. We know that our friends up in Humboldt County, they are in the dark right now. Electricity is out.
I hate to interrupt you, Reed, but hold on. My producer, Dave, just gave me this important note of information. Say that again, Dave. Okay, we just got word from the National Weather Service that
this tsunami fucking got Dave.
the tsunami threat in the Bay Area is over. Now, we're
Dave,
working to confirm that, but according to my producer, the National Weather Service, Jess, you have some new information as well.
I'll read it from the National Weather Service directly. The tsunami warning is canceled for the coastal areas of both California and Oregon. They're now stating that no tsunami danger is presently in this area, here in the Bay Area. So this will be the final warning from the U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center.
Dude, Dave fucking took one for the team. He went into the tsunami. He sacrificed himself. Thank you, Dave.
The final
Good
message
job,
for
man.
all of our region, all throughout the Bay, all throughout our coastline in California. We just got this update from the National Weather Service. The tsunami warning is canceled for the coastal areas of California and Oregon. Reed?
So that's not to say, though, that this is not still an important story, because we have seen communities mobilize all up and down the coastline. We've been showing you images of people on the roads evacuating, bottlenecks of traffic. So regardless,
Dude, maybe cancel culture is real.
whether that has expired or not, and we're so glad that it has, thank goodness for that, there are still the impacts of that.
That was pretty funny to just suddenly be like, no, it's all good now, actually.
And that is going to speak to the fact that we still need to be good neighbors. We still need to pass along information, and we still need to be patient out there on the roads, because the roads are going to be jammed for quite some time. The impacts are real.
Okay, I want to get to Ryan
If this is my
Yamamoto.
last sub, you can thank the tsunami. Yay area.
Animal Bros, they hear the time. Oh my god, dude, sorry.
In our newsroom, and Ryan, you've got some new information.
Wait,
Yeah,
there's
we
new
were,
information?
We've been scouring through social media, looking for different videos of the damage, especially up in Northern California. So we're getting our first look at some of the damage. We've been showing it to you earlier, but let me give you some context of what we're looking at. The first video, this is from the Victoria Inn in Ferndale. You can see that door is
Damn.
collapsed.
No, the earthquake was severe. I mean, it's a 7 earthquake. It was pretty severe from my understanding.
Glass is shattered. All the bar items and the drinks and the liquor, that has all fallen down. This is in Ferndale. This was built in 1886. It's called the Victorian Inn.
Yeah.
It's about 20 miles south of Eureka. We also have some more damage out of the Ferndale area. This is one ex-user posting video from her home and around town. This, of course, is inside a grocery store. So you can see a lot of things were coming down from the shelves. But, of course, up in Northern California, in that part of the state, we're near the epicenter. I mean, they really felt this.
I hope nobody was hurt.
7.0 earthquake. Also, this is footage of damage from a shop, ShopSmart. This is in Redway in Humboldt County. This was actually taken by the fire chief up there. You can see all the cans and all the goods have come down off the shelves. So you can only imagine what that
Sorry, I hope no one was severely hurt.
must have felt like as that shaking was happening of a 7.0 earthquake. And here's some video inside a grocery store in the city of Davis. They felt the shaking all the way there. We felt the shaking as far as close as City Hall, but some of the lights there are kind of swaying back and forth. So they definitely felt the shaking of that 7.0, even though they're about.
This is, what is this video? Why? It's like, I like how nobody else in the grocery store is phased. People still shopping. They're like, California. Anyways.
What, 350 miles from the earthquake's epicenter. And then this is a picture of the traffic from Half Moon Bay on Highway 92.
Hassan leaves LA and then they get hit with an earthquake. It was like him jumping to London, like caused the shockwave.
We had
somehow caused the earthquake.
earlier, but those are the people heading out of the peninsula to get to higher ground. Of course, that tsunami warning has now been taken away and is now been canceled. But as you mentioned, Reed, this is definitely having an impact on a lot of people out there. But some more damage of some of the different areas, the grocery stores and businesses up in Northern California that definitely felt the shaking, because they were so close to that epicenter of a 7.0. We're working to get more video and more information coming out of Northern California, but we'll keep you updated. But as you can see, if you were up in Northern California, you definitely felt it, and you definitely experienced some damage from that earthquake.
Yeah, we spoke to a couple people who live up there, Ryan, and they described it as sort of this rolling sensation. And, you know, I've lived in California my whole life, and we know a lot of people up there have lived there too, and they felt earthquakes, but it doesn't matter. Every single time you feel one, it is shocking.
Oh, yeah, there's that moment, right, where you just kind of stop and you pause. You and I were in the studio for the noon show during, I think it was only like a 4.5, and you and I both, we froze and we looked at each other and then we looked up, and I remember watching the lights above us just swaying back and forth. And so it is an eerie feeling when you feel that. And, you know, I was here during Wilma.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lana Zach. We continue to follow this breaking news out of.
They just cut him off. They were like, shut the fuck up, dude. Anyways, we're going to continue to follow that story. was pissed. She's like, damn, no tsunami. So no tsunami? Fuck. Oh, God. Okay. Ugh. Excuse me. This is God taking revenge for the CEO. Obviously. Historically, everybody knows that God teaches you to steal from other people by letting them die from preventable illnesses. That's in like verse 11, 16, Leviathan, Corinthian. And then Jesus said, steal as much money as possible from people who are currently dying. It happens. That's what you're supposed to do. Just like Jesus did. Leviathan monk. Supplies. Jesus. Sorry, the tsunami being canceled just like made me laugh so hard. It just put me in a good mood. Oh my God. There's something about them being like, oh, actually, we're getting word right now. Yeah, it's over. Okay, we're good. We lost contact with Dave. We don't know what happened to that guy, but yeah, we're good. There's something about that was very funny. I'm in the area. There was a tsunami in Humble. There was a tsunami in Humble area and still warning in all the beachside areas. Sure, but there's like a difference between I guess like rising water levels or whatever, or like maybe even close to something like beach warnings and then like a tsunami. Because like even when like hurricanes, when the hurricane warnings go down and they're like, okay, we're good. Actually, no hurricanes. You still have like a tropical storm. You'll still have like high winds per wind speed, mile per hour winds, etc. Murder implies the killing was unjustified and against a human being. Oh, fuck, dude. I'm getting fucking roasted and toasted by this Twitch chatter. First fucking chat message fucking destroying me. Jesus Christ. I can tell you're a real leftist. Bootleg toy, thank you for the 33 months. All right, let's try and finish this TYT video because, man, it's brutal for me.
Right here is the future we all saw when we made that birthing person response to her, or when we responded to her birthing person tweet, I should say. And as her friends, we tried to stop her from going down this path, but apparently it was already too late. And I guess we also underestimated how open she would be to criticism because she does not like fucking being criticized. You know? So we're seeing this collision of grievance politics and mixed messaging where she'll aesthetically present herself as a trans ally, then substantively say something that is objectively transphobic, but since she rejects our claim that she's being anti-trans, it activates the politics of grievances, where she'll then try to double down and further insulate herself in the right-wing bubble who's going to validate her TERF concerns. And this is the cycle that's becoming more clear. I didn't spot it at first, but now it's much more clear after we've been seeing this again and again for the past year or so. And it's not just Anna, because on Hassan's Thanksgiving stream, Cenk Uygur sent the same mixed message about trans people, where he presented himself as a warrior for trans rights, but the caveat was that they don't get to be as equal as their cis peers. But if we reject that, that activates another cycle of grievance politics. So let's watch.
The reason I make a distinction between high school and professional sports is because in high school, what you're saying is, like Ohio, if I really want to institute this, even though it affects almost no trans or cis girls, if in the world, in Ohio as it is, but if I go to implement it, now I got to check everybody's genitals, and there's got to be a genital checker, right? And let me guess, tons of Republican older men are going to volunteer to check the genitals of our high school kids. And I hate it. I don't want it. It's like a groomer pervert factory. And they're going to probably put Jim Jordan in charge of it. No. Okay. But when you get to the professional level, you get to the Olympic level, you guys make a giant mistake. You fall right into their trap. And you go, oh, yeah, sure, they should be able to compete. When the overwhelming majority of the American people do not agree with you, you should let the Olympics and the professional sports decide it on their own. It is not a constitutional right. They have no so-called right to participate in the WNBA. I don't have a right to participate in the NBA. So number one, I don't agree when you go to those extremes. And number two, does it affect elections? Well, we had an overwhelming answer to that in the Trump-Harris contest.
So in his mind, he's being perfectly reasonable, and he starts by making an argument that we all agree with, but he ends by making a transphobic argument that we don't agree with. And since he started with the pro-trans argument, since he led with that, he thinks it's outrageous to condemn the thing that he said that we don't agree with. But I'm sorry, you don't get to control what we're allowed to agree or disagree with, nor do you get to dictate what trans people should and shouldn't accept when it comes to their own humanity. And the argument that he uses is fallacious because, you know, nobody is saying that there's a right to be in the WNBA. I don't know a single person who said that, right? Nor is trans sports the focus of trans activism, broadly speaking. But switch the group for a moment. Let's just say that I was rejected from the NBA because I'm gay. Would Cenk then say, oh, well, too bad, boo-hoo, you don't have a right to participate in the NBA? My guess is that he probably wouldn't say that because it's discrimination. If the basis of my rejection is sexual orientation alone, that is discrimination. It's not about whether or not I have a right to be in the NBA. It's about whether or not my inclusion or exclusion hinges on my sexual orientation. Now just replace gay with trans, and you see the problem. People shouldn't have less opportunities simply because they're trans. I mean, he's making a similar argument that conservatives used to make against gay marriage, where they'd say something like, you know, gay people technically aren't being discriminated against because we all have the same rights. For example, I, as a straight man, cannot marry a man. Therefore, since gay men also can't marry men, then we have the same rights. Makes sense, right? It comes from a place of deliberate ignorance and denies the immutability of sexual orientation and gender identity. You can choose to not act on it, but you can never turn it off, right? You can choose to LARP as a straight man and marry a woman, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still gay. A trans person who never transitions is still trans because it is innate. But me making this counter-argument would be seen as an attack by Cenk since he prefaced his anti-trans statement with the pro-trans one. And one thing that he did throughout the entirety of that conversation with Hassan was bring up how he's the real left and we're all the fake left because his positions are popular and ours are unpopular. But first of all, I don't base my worldview on what is and isn't popular. I base it on what's right. Populism can be useful electorally, but it's not the basis of my ideology, and nobody should base their ideology on what's popular. Second of all, if we have a position that's unpopular, it is our job as political commentators to make those positions popular. If we preemptively capitulate to every policy that might be unpopular, or we adopt positions based on how we think the Republican Party will respond, we would never have any progress on any issue ever. As a gay man, I was born unpopular, baby.
I knew someone was going to say this, which is why I was like waiting for it. I was like, come on, do it. Somebody do it. But see, this is where you lost me. Switching the metaphoric group doesn't work like that. Being gay in sports has nothing to do with your body anatomy. Having male anatomy and playing in women's sports gives you an unfair advantage. Being gay doesn't. It's important to see why trans sports are different than human rights. There's a reason why women and men are separated in all sports, or why doping is such an issue in sports. Unfortunately, you're misinformed on a lot of these things that you're talking about. Number one, there's a lot of sports that are segregated, not because of any biological differences. Okay, most primarily the one that comes to mind is chess. And then we can get into whether or not they're segregated for other reasons like sexism or that the space is hostile to women. Okay, but let's talk about a physical sport, archery. Archery is a segregated sport. Except one little problem with archery. Women have outperformed men in archery. So is shooting. Shooting is a segregated sport for some bizarre reason. There are other reasons that sports are regulated, and there are other reasons that sports have different segregations that have less to do with bodily anatomy and more to do with other things. So this is just wrong. There's a reason why women and men are separated in all sports. It's just incorrect. Okay? The other thing that I want to say is there is segregation that is non-gender specific. So weight classes, for example. Okay? In sports where fighting is a thing, you need weight classes because it actually is dangerous to have them not be in the same weight class. Okay? Segregation sometimes is totally random, and gender segregation has been historically, sometimes in certain categories, totally random. And in other instances, it's segregated because weight class is actually important. I did wrestling and we just went by weight class. I was in the 120-pound bracket and we wrestled alongside so many girls and there was nothing wrong with that. Yeah. The other problem, of course, is that when Mike was bringing up from the Humanist sport, when he was bringing up gay people being segregated, okay, from sports, you misunderstood. He didn't say that to show that trans people shouldn't be segregated because there's no difference between gay people, there's no difference between cis women and trans women. That's not what the point that he was trying to make. The point that he was trying to make is, if you believe there to be an unfair advantage, you have to prove that. Otherwise, it's just discrimination. You have to show, well, we're not banning you from this competition because you're trans. We're banning you because your testosterone levels are too high and because this is too high and this is too unacceptable and this is too unacceptable. If you ban someone and just say you're trans so we can't have you, you haven't proven what they've done wrong and why they're not allowed to participate. It would be in that context the exact same as saying you're not allowed to participate because you're gay. He's just bringing up a group of people to highlight how segregation works. If that's still too difficult for you, I'll bring up a more simple example. Black people in sports, specifically Black women in sports. Black women have had to fight hardcore to stay in women's sports. And there is interesting data that shows that, as many would speculate or many would guess, there are actually biological or maybe not biological, but physical differences among racial groups. That there are instances where these group of people tend to have more of this or less of this or more of that or less of this. One common piece of misinfo that's often thrown around on an explanation on why we shouldn't allow trans people in or trans women in sports is because their bone density is higher. Trans women's bone density is higher than cis women's bone density, and so they shouldn't be allowed to participate in female sports because they have an unfair advantage. But the problem is, you go and look at the science and then you find out that apparently Black women have higher bone density than cis white men do. You can't use things as arguments on why someone shouldn't be allowed to participate if you actually haven't done the research to show that, first of all, that bone density would be important in this or that sport. And second, arguments that would ban different races. Do you think that then we should start banning? If bone density is so important that we need to ban trans women, are you also going to start banning Black women from sports? I didn't know that. Yeah, it's actually really, really cool, I guess, because it shows a total lack of understanding on what makes people better at sports and what makes people worse at sports. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you're up against someone who has better form and technique in a fighting sport, you will lose. You could be twice someone's fucking weight, but if you have very little MMA practice or any fighting practice and you go up against someone who's an MMA professional, they're going to beat your ass even if they weigh a fraction of your weight because they have the form and technique. You can't just say, here's this bodily difference. Okay, now we can ban these people, when you actually haven't researched everything about that bodily difference. You haven't proven that bodily difference actually makes an impact, and then you haven't proven how much of an impact there even is. You have to be very cautious when you are excluding people from a group because you are unintentionally feeding into things like race realism. So if you say, no, I know this for a fact, there's a difference between trans women and cis women, and they obviously can never compete together, ever. When you're asked to provide evidence, and the only evidence you can provide is one that is a race realist argument that also doesn't prove that those people are better or worse in this form. What are you doing? What are you fucking doing? You're what? Dude. So anyways, yeah, I could talk about this stuff forever. I could talk about it forever. I like that the cat stole the seat. He's just having fun. I'm going to go get this is actually why I have a second chair. So that I can sit in the cuck chair for when my cat steals my chair. He's diabolical.